Noriels, Charlotte Dachshund. And today we're going to be doing a bedtime story. So here's my mom. And here's me. And there's my brother Niles right there. And here's me. Hi. So wait, I'm eating some ice cream. That's my ice cream cheese. So, and I'm eating the ice cream like so yummy. And I'm going to when I eat my ice cream.
Okay, so we're just going to set this right over here. Okay. Okay. Lay down, Niles. A room with a zoo. Lay down. I need you guys to lay down. Remember the rules. You gotta lay down. Okay? You too, Nori.
I gotta lay down, see?
No, lay down right with your pillow. Put your pillow over here so your head don't hurt. Bring it over here. You scoot down. There you go. Just scoot down a little bit and put your head right there, okay? Okay. A room with a zoo. So where are we at? Where did we live off at? Okay, here we left off at. Chapter 9.
Mama, thirsty.
Watching my fish was like watching television. Hurry up and go get something to drink and come back.
Okay. I'm covering my...
I sat on the floor and it went back and forth 1,000 times. I could have watched forever. Timmy too. We sat together, which never happened. Ew, TV. Sometimes Timmy climbed into my lap, which he hadn't done once since he was a kid and sick. The fish was my mother's idea, or my father's. They both said they had it. They wanted to buy a big, strange-looking fish to take Timmy's mind off of Hammy, to make him feel better. I don't know why they thought buying a second animal he couldn't eat would make him feel better, but so far, so good. I would have thought Timmy would go even more crazy with the two of them up there. But when my father put the new fish tank on the bookshelf, Timmy kind of forgot about Hammy. He hardly even looked at him anymore, even though the tank was just under Hammy's cage. When he did, he got this sort of surprised look on his face, like he had to remind himself. Hey, don't I know you from somewhere? My mother told me she never would have bought such a big tank and so much equipment. But since my father didn't know anything about fish, he got too much of everything. My father wasn't sure he did the right thing either. He was worried that the fish would die any minute. Which is why he told me he filled and refilled the tank 3 times before I came home and put it in the gravel on the bottom and took some out and put even more in and then took it all out because he forgot to wash it. Lay down, please. We're not listening to the TV, we're listening to the book. Can you please lay down? Do you want me to stop reading?
I want to listen like that. What are you doing?
Niles, close your eyes and listen. Dory, lay down and listen. Close your eyes and listen to the story. No. You want me to turn off the TV then? You want me to turn off the TV?
Yeah. No.
Niles, please lay down. Lay down, please. And why you take that off your head?
Because it's hot.
Okay, lay down, please.
I want to
Shh, I'm reading. Are you going to listen to me reading? Close your eyes then. Okay, close your eyes. Nori, please lay down. Because I'm stopping.
The TV you get.
Was supposed to put it before he put it in. And then he put rocks in, which he remembered to scrub first. And he built a cave with the rocks like the instruction book on the fish said to do. By putting a bunch of rocks in a circle in the middle of the tank, and then you put a flat rock on top. like it's a roof. Then he put in some plants with long, skinny, wavy leaves. And to make you know if the water is too warm or cold, he taped a thermometer inside the tank, and he put in a filter. Red Tiger Oscar was the name they said in the pet store that my fish was. I called him Oscar. Oscar was 6 or 8 inches long and white and flat and dangerous looking. Yes, he was a fish.
It's because the water didn't get cleaned out.
Yeah.
They forgot to clean it.
His dark gray color made him look like a gangster on TV. His wide body made him look like a gangster wearing an overcoat with blood on it. Wavy speckles of dark red, kind of like dried blood, spread across the whole bottom part of his body. It was scary, but nice scary. His eyes were black like a gangster's, and on top of his eyes there was a bright red line, the color of his speckles. He reminds me of Tony Soprano, my father said. So he called my fish Tony. He's a famous TV gangster. Oscar moved very slow across the tank, like he was following somebody for revenge. Maybe another gangster who had robbed him. Timmy and I watched all day. I made up stories for Timmy to keep him from getting bored. Once upon a time, Oscar and Hammy and Timmy were on their way to Grandma's house, and they were in the woods, and a wolf came up to them, and he said, "Where are you going by the hair of my chinny chin chin?" And they said, "We're going to Grandma's house." And the wolf said, "Okay then, goodbye." And he took a shortcut, and he knocked on Grandma's door, and she said, "Who is it?" And the wolf said, "It's Oscar, and Hammy, and Timmy." So Grandma said, "Okay, you can come in." And so the wolf went in, and he ate up Grandma. And when Oscar and Hammy and Timmy came and knocked on the door, the wolf said, "Who's there?" And they said, "It's Oscar and Hammy and Timmy." And the wolf, who was disguised as Grandma, said, "Come in by the hair of my chinny chin chin." So they came in with an axe and chopped off the wolf's head, because they knew it was the wolf because he said chinny chin chin. And Grandma climbed out of the hole in the wolf's neck, and she was safe and sound. And they sat down to eat the wolf for dinner. And the lesson of this story is, if you eat somebody else, watch out, because somebody else will eat you. After a week with us, Oscar started to hide out in the little rock cave at the bottom of the tank my father made. Maybe he really was a gangster. He stayed there as much as he swam around. I missed him. So did Timmy. We sat on the floor and looked at his tank and waited and waited. I called him, "Oscar! Oscar!" I stood on the chair. I spray painted last year, but it needs another coat. I tapped my finger on the tank. Tap, tap. "Come out! Come out, wherever you are, Oscar." But he wasn't listening. He came out only when I fed him. So I fed him more and more. Dried flakes and frozen fish stuff, and he'd gulp it down like candy. And then he'd go back into his cave, which was getting too small for him. Tony Soprano is getting fat, my mother said. He's growing, and his name is Oscar. You're feeding him too much, honey, she said. You don't know. You don't even like fish. Please, Julie. She looked a little mad. I can't help it if it's true. What was I supposed to do? Lie? She can't stand fish or any pets. I don't know what she's going to do when I'm old enough to have a dog. She doesn't even know how to pet a dog. She does it the wrong way. She pets up when you're supposed to pet down. So how did she know Oscar was fat? He was growing because he was big and healthy, which is what a fish is supposed to be. Lots of fish, when you bring them home, get sick and die right away. Natasha had a fish who died, and so did Melanie and Letita, but their fishes never looked as healthy as Oscar. Anyway, he was less scary when he was fat. He didn't look so much like a gangster in a coat anymore. He looked cute. I'm the one with him all day, me and Timmy. So I could tell you what was wrong better than my mother. Oscar was lonesome, that's all. He needed some fish to play with. I picked out the fish. There were 3 of them, and they were big, not as big as Oscar. but it was safer to have a bigger fish over a littler fish. The man in the store said, because Oscar could eat a little fish. And actually, I saw fish so little swimming around in tanks that I bet Oscar would have eaten them. So the way I picked out the fish was, I'd go from tank to tank with Haley, who took me, and we argued about it. He'd eat that one, Haley said. No, he wouldn't. Yes, he would. You're lying. The man in the store was no help because he said Oscar could eat anything, so no fish was safe. But I didn't believe him, and Haley thought that the way the man looked at her, he didn't like her. So we made up our own minds. We got 3 fantails, which are goldfish, because they were beautiful, but also big. They were almost as big as Oscar, and sort of white too, and such a gorgeous red. It was hard to believe it was painted on. It wasn't painted on. You could believe it in a picture or a magazine, but not in real life. I mean, if it wasn't on a fish, it would look freaky. If you saw a person coming down the street and she was that red, you'd go, no way. I wouldn't have dogged that red. Clifford the dog is red, but not red. Anyhow, he's not real. Anyhow, it doesn't matter, because I wouldn't buy a dog like Clifford. Mine would be a Chihuahua. I didn't think Oscar would be such a gangster around Reddy, which is what I decided to name them. All 3 of my new fish. They all looked exactly the same, so why not? When we put them in the tank, Oscar stayed hidden in his rock hole. He wouldn't even say hello, but Timmy did. He couldn't take his eyes off my 3 Reddys, like he was hypnotized. Come on, lay down. Niles, you're supposed to be close your eyes. I'm going to turn off the TV again, please. How could he not fall in love with fishes so red? Poor Hammy ran around like crazy on whale. Nobody hardly looked at him anymore. Red wasn't my Reddy's only color. They had a kind of gold middle around their bellies, and a long, swishy white veil at the back of their fins that you could see through. And it was so pretty the way it floated, like the train part of a wedding dress. I said to Timmy, the whole first day home, you'll have to be patient, Timmy. Soon Oscar will come out and make friends. But he hadn't by bedtime. And the next morning when I woke up, one of Reddy's was missing.
Why is her mouth open?
Well, I'll tell you why. The next morning when I woke up, one of the Reddy's was missing. I screamed so loud, my mother and father and Haley came running in. Haley tried to calm me down. She always tries to calm me down when I'm too excited. But now I was too excited for a good reason. I kept pointing at the tank and screaming, look, look, look. It took a minute for them to figure it out because what I was pointing at for them to look at wasn't there anymore. The first thing my father did was find a big glass jar in the kitchen cabinet, high up somewhere. So he had to climb on a ladder. And my mother and Haley said, be careful, because my father doesn't have good balance. And I didn't want him to break a leg because of me and the bad thing I made happen. And he filled the jar with water and he put the other 2 Reddies in. Oscar was back in his cave, hiding. I hoped he felt bad. But if he lived to be 100, he couldn't feel half as bad as I did. I should have listened to the man in the store. I felt so awful. I couldn't look at my 2 other Reddies without crying. They reminded me too much of my missing Reddy. Take them back to the store, I begged my father. Oscar could stay in his cave forever. He should be in jail for the gangster he was. I thought of giving him away to Natasha, and we could be friends again, but I couldn't give him away because it was my fault more than his. I didn't want to have to look at him for a long, long time, especially those red speckles on his body from one end to the other. They were like the ghost of Reddy's inside his tummy, shining through, reminding me of my badness. My mother and father couldn't, no matter how hard they tried, make me feel better over Reddy. First of all, it's a parent's job to make you feel better. So whatever they said, I wasn't going to believe them. For instance, they said in a day or 2, I'd get over it. The more they said it, the more I knew I wouldn't. Haley was actually the one who helped, she said. Julie, it's my fault more than yours, because I should have known better, and I did. but I let you talk me into it. She lets me talk her into things a lot because she loved me so much. And that made me feel less bad. Then she and I played a great game of Zillionaire on her computer. And by the time I won, I didn't think about Reddy so much anymore. My father said he'd take Oscar back to the store and exchange him for more Reddys, or any other kind of fish who wouldn't eat each other. The second I said, that's a good idea, I felt sad. I didn't ever want to see Oscar again, but I couldn't tell my father right that minute. I never wanted to see him again. In a couple of days, maybe. Except in a couple of days, I was back to liking Oscar. The more I thought about it, the whole thing was my fault. The man at the store warned me that Oscar was going to eat any fish he felt like. I should have listened. If I got rid of Oscar, then maybe I should be gotten rid of too, since my parents would never do that, and I was kind of Oscar's parents. How could I do it to him? You have to keep your child even when he's bad. So I had to keep Oscar and make myself forgive him. What made everything better was the turtle my mother got for me. She said it was the kind of pet she could appreciate. It didn't do anything. It just sat on a rock in its tank most of the time, looking out the wall. She got the idea, she said, having lunch with her girlfriend, Martha. But she told her about my fish and how sad I was. And Martha said, she needs a new pet. And they spent the rest of the lunch talking about what kind. And no matter what Martha said, bird, rabbit, snake, lizard, my mother went each until Martha said, how about a turtle? Do you hate turtles? And my mother said, I don't think I hate them. And she thought about it and decided she didn't. Or if she did, not that much. So on the way home, she went to our pet store and asked the man who Haley said doesn't like her about turtles. I guess because she decided to give him a second chance. Besides, the way my mother makes everything into a conversation, everybody likes her. They had this long talk about how he lived in New Jersey, and his mother didn't want him coming to work in New York City every day, so he was thinking of quitting the pet store and going back to school in New Jersey to be a science teacher. So even if he sold us the wrong fish last time because he hated Haley, he wouldn't do that to my mother because she made him her friend. Turtle Lily looked like a midget dinosaur, stuck inside a rock. He had these little black eyes that I don't know where they were looking, never at me, and the kind of expression that made me wonder the way I never did with Timmy or Hammy or Oscar, whether or not he had feelings. He had this red stripe on both sides of his head, where his ears should have been, but I couldn't see them. If he had them, to me, he really looked smart, like Niles.
Very smart.
Yes, but what could he be smart about if he lived his whole life inside a tank? When he moved it, it was hardly at all. Mostly he crept underwater onto a small pile of rocks my father put in a corner of his tank. He climbed on top of every day out of the water and sat there until it was dark, with his neck sticking way out of his shell like a fat noodle. Sometimes he stood up against the glass and scratched hard with his claws, like he was trying to break out. But he didn't do that a lot, or I would have worried. When I went near him, he stuck his head back inside his shell, and it took a long time for him to come out again. I wanted him to like me, but I don't think he did. Now let's lay down. My mother called him Shy One. My father called him Rocky. Only Haley called him by his right name. My parents thought it was funny to give my pets joke names, but it was the opposite of funny. It hurt my feelings. First, they bought me these animals, and then they made fun of them. I mean, if my mother is going to make fun of my turtle, why did she buy him for me in the first place? Or why did my father change the water in his tank every 2 days and scrub the rocks he found in Riverside Park for him to climb out of the water on? And that is the end of Bedtime Story tonight. With a room with a zoo. We will finish chapter 15 tomorrow. Say goodnight. Say goodnight. Until tomorrow, tell them. Say until tomorrow. We'll read again. Good night.
Good night.
And Nori's already asleep. Good night. Perfect. Okay.